Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Full Potential Show. I'm James Rick, and this is your number one non-boring source for personal development. Today on the line, we have James Krehbiel. He's a cognitive behavioral therapist and author of Troubled Childhood, Triumphant Life, Healing from the Battle Scars of Youth. He offers solution-focused strategies to assist adults like us in overcoming the perils of the past. So today we're going to talk about how to use your perils of the past, and we all have them, to power our present. James, so glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, James, I hope we can change lives today, and we can use your vast experience in working with people in all kinds of past situations to really power the present, because that's where our power is. So I want to, before we go into the steps on how to do that, I want to talk about what is driving you. What started this whole idea of resolving the past issues? Did you start with a troubled childhood?
Yes. Two things drove me. One was my own personal perspective on things, and I grew up in a family that was very, very troubled. My father was an alcoholic, and so I learned a lot of coping skills. They actually worked pretty effectively as a child, but as we know, as we move into adulthood, they are not very effective. They don't work. And as I looked at my clients, as I looked at my patients, I found that many of them were having a really, really difficult time. They were struggling with relationship issues, and I would talk to them and I say, you know what? A lot of this comes down to some assumptions, interpretations from childhood. And then we started taking a look at it. One of the things that I found out was, as I talked to people, I'd say, you know, this never was about you. The things that happened in your past, in your childhood, happened because your parents just weren't handling things effectively. They didn't have the skills. And when they found that relief, it was a powerful thing for them. And then they were begin to move with me.
So you've made something very important, very clear, and that is that parents, all they really have are strategies for how to raise a child or how to deal with people. And sometimes those strategies aren't very effective at all. In fact, they're hurtful and can be very painful. And what you're saying is you're helping a lot of the people that you work with to understand that they just had really poor strategies for raising you, for dealing with you, for meeting human needs that we all have. And once you can understand that they're just executing a very poor strategy, you can almost feel bad for them, because you can imagine the kind of strategies they're using all through life are causing all kinds of negative consequences for them. Is that the idea?
Yes, there's no manual. You know, parents do the best they can, but they come up short in many cases. They just don't have the skills. They don't learn how to effectively parent. And so one of the things that I find is that children go through their childhood clinging to this notion that their parents are going to morph, and they're going to become these loving, caring adults that they've always yearned for. In many cases, that just doesn't happen.
So it's also an acceptance.
Part of it is acceptance, which involves some grieving. Once that grieving and releasing occurs, people generally then can move on.
All right, so it's really being stuck in this idea of they knew the right strategies all along, but they were just harming me on purpose. That's not true. They just have very poor strategies in some cases. And then accepting that they're not necessarily going to grow and evolve, especially if they continue to run the same patterns for the rest of their life. Once you come to grips with that, you go through a grieving process and you open up a space of non-expectation related to them, but full expectation for yourself and how you're going to move forward.
Yes, one of the things I think is very important, and I'm a cognitive therapist, is looking at core assumptions, I call them. These are interpretations that govern people's lives when they're growing up. These are these unknown dysfunctional things. For example, I must avoid conflict at all costs. I must look good better rather than to feel good. So there's certain core interpretations that people have that they bring into adulthood from childhood that are troublesome.
And really rooting out these core assumptions, or at least being aware of them, helps you to understand the operating system that's driving you? Because this is like your Windows. This is like your Mac operating system, but it's in your head. These core assumptions determine everything that you do and your behavior, right?
These are powerful activators. They're powerful hot buttons that come from childhood. And once adults begin to understand, oh yeah, that's what's driving me, then they're in a position to make different interpretations, different assumptions about life. But they have to first see that. If it was just a matter of saying, I just want you to think differently, I'd send them to a Dale Carnegie class. But these core assumptions are so powerful that they hold people back. So they have to be ferreted out. They have to be looked at, they have to be grieved, and then I can help people to move on.
So there's a lot of energy around these. I mean, almost an emotional bondage to these early assumptions in life that a child has formed, and that's really key. A child used its childlike brain to form these assumptions, but then they carry out into the program into adulthood unless you take a hard look at them as a mature adult and start rooting them out and dissolving the negatively charged emotion around them, right?
Precisely. There's that emotion that's around them. In fact, when people meet with me and we get to that core interpretation, they appear frozen, they're mystified, they're confused. And then it's my point to help them to grieve it, to support them in that process, and then to move on to better ways of looking at the world.
And in my experience, James, many times these core assumptions are also so linked to survival for the ego that defense mechanisms start coming out. Shields and walls and sort of they feel threatened, they feel attacked, and they'll do anything, unless they're really ready for that change, they'll do anything but change those core assumptions. Am I right?
That's exactly right. That one of the strategies that we use is to try to minimize the pain of the past. And so that's when the defenses come up. And my job is to tell people, look, your parents didn't knowingly do this. They just didn't have it. And to help people to understand that, that they need to rectify this and to help them. Because what adults do is they try to let their parents off the hook. And one of the ways they do that is by trying to deny the reality of what is.
Okay. And so now, you're watching this right now. Maybe you have some of these issues in the past that have not been dissolved. They're still charged up. Maybe you're aware of it. Maybe you don't let anybody else in to see those things. What do you do in this situation, James? What would you recommend? Maybe some key points that somebody could take away from this to start the work that needs to be done to resolve and neutralize and dissolve these negatively charged emotions so they can start living a happier, more productive life?
Well, one of the things that I advise people to do is to write a letter. It's not to be delivered. It's to get in touch with their feelings about their parents. If they've had a parent that's been abusive, if they've had a parent that's been difficult to deal with, if they've had adverse childhood experiences, I ask them to write a letter that they don't deliver. And in there, they share their core feelings about what they experienced. That way we can take a look at it. My job is to get people out of their head and into their heart, to get them into experiencing the full impact of what they experienced as children. Because paradoxically, once they do that, they're actually able to have a better relationship with their parents in the here and now, assuming their parents are still alive.
What I'm hearing, James, the first important step is to bring it to the surface, and writing is an excellent tool to do that. Bring it to the surface so now you can look at it with the full light of awareness and with an open heart, so that now you can experience it fully again, but now you're in a mature adulthood. Maybe you're going to go through a lot of emotion, crying, sadness, anger, but once you get through that process, you're now in a much more receptive, open, and more emotionally neutralized state to have a better relationship, if you want, with your parent, or at least have a much better relationship with yourself and other people in the future.
Yes, a great part of it is flushing out the emotion. That's the start. But then people can work on their relationships in the here and now, whether it's their parents or with other people. And that may involve setting better boundaries with people, becoming more assertive, all of these things that they may have not learned when they were children.
At this point, then it becomes about learning new strategies to be more empowered as you relate and connect with people going forward. But at least now you're no longer being manipulated by these core assumptions from the past.
Precisely. That's exactly what it is.
All right, James. Well, James Krehbiel. James, where do they go to get a free copy of your book? I know we're giving away 3 copies to the first responders. How do they get a copy?
Well, they can go to email me at JK Boardroom Suites. That's all one word, JK Boardroom Suites at yahoo.com. And I'll be happy to send an autographed copy to the first 3 people to contact me.
All right, it's a very generous offer. There's a hard copy of the book. He's going to mail it to your address if you reach out to him. This is the book, Troubled Childhood, Triumphant Life, Healing from the Battle Scars of Youth. If you email James at jkboardroomsuites at yahoo.com, he's going to get you out a free copy. That's to the first 3. Otherwise, where can they pick up a copy of the book, James?
They can go to Amazon, that's probably the best way.com, or they can go to Barnes & Nobles, or other bookstores have copies of it.
Okay, that's Troubled Childhood, Triumphant Life. And where's your website, James, that they can go to follow along and learn more about you as well?
Sure. They can go to scottsdaletherapy.net and find out about me and my book.
Okay, scottsdaletherapy.net. Again, email James. We'll put it up there on the screen and also in the description. James Krehbiel, we're so thankful to have you on the show today. This is a powerful lesson for creating a future that's no longer based on or manipulated from the past. I'm so glad to have you on the show, James.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Everybody who's watching and listening right now, be sure and like and subscribe the Full Potential Show so you can get more great insights from folks like James and freebies that you'll only find right here on the Full Potential Show. James, have a great afternoon.
You too.
Take care. Well, that concludes this week's episode of the Full Potential Show, your #1 non-boring source for personal development. I'm James Rick, and if you want to get more positive programming for your brain absolutely free on a weekly basis, just visit fullpotential.com.
If you like the Full Potential Show, you're going to love the Full Potential Club. What would you like most as a Full Potential Club member? Be 2 to 3 times more productive? Do what you're passionate about? Have more energy? Reduce your work hours? Travel the world? Enjoy an amazing lifestyle on a frugal budget? What if you could do them all? James Rick has been there and done it in ways that few people have. For anyone serious about taking their life or business to the next level, you know you've got to do more than just watch. You've got to do. Join James Rick and other like-minded people for an incredible $10 a month at fullpotential.com/club. Be educated. Be empowered. Be the best version of you. fullpotential.com/club. Try it free for 30 days.